Hey, so this is the Drunkalogs, a podcast about addiction and recovery in which each guest shares their version of how it was, what happened, and how it is now, and then endures a half-hour Q&A at the hands of your host, Nick Morton. My next guest began his career as an actor when he was still a student at NYU. He moved to Los Angeles in 1994 and has since appeared in many well-known television series and films. He is also a very talented voiceover artist who, even on my rudimentary equipment, is a wonder to behold. Won't you please welcome Shawn Michael Howard. Your name is Shawn Michael Howard, right?
Yeah.
And is that your professional name, or have you
it's
always?
It's my name.
Always gone by Shawn Michael Howard.
Shawn Michael Howard from Newark, New Jersey. That's my
and
name.
so your
birth certificate.
your buddies growing up, they'd be like, they'd call you Shawn, or
No,
they'd call you
actually,
Shawn Michael.
It's funny. So growing up, they called me Shawnee.
Shawnee,
in my neighborhood in Jersey.
right?
I never felt like a Shawn.
Definitely
not. And then especially when I found out people were spelling it S-E-A-N, because I
Right.
spell it S-H-A-W-N.
Yeah.
But no, they called me Shawnee growing up. And then when I got to college, I had, you go to college and you can kind of make your stuff.
Right, yeah.
You can be who you want to be.
Yeah, totally.
And this was in the late 80s. And my cousin became a rock star around that time.
Who's that?
His name's Terrence, Trent, Darby.
Oh, shit. No way.
His-
Really?
His mom and my dad are brother and sister.
Wow.
So, he's
That's
very
amazing.
famous at the time.
What was his, big hit
Wishing
then?
love and wishing well, kiss and
Oh,
tell.
yeah.
That guy.
No way.
Yeah.
Fuck. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I was very influenced.
And was
by
he
him.
in and around New York at that time?
He
You were
was-
in New York, right?
I was in Jersey.
You were in Jersey.
And then I went to college. I went to NYU.
NYU.
And so, he lived in England, but he would come to town and, I would go to shows, or he played Saturday
Is
Night
he British
Live.
or is he American?
No, he's from Chicago.
Right.
But, he had this affected British accent, though. That's for sure. But he would come to town, and, I would go to his shows, and he'd play Saturday Night Live, so I got to go and watch and Grammy parties and stuff like that.
Wow.
Which is why I got into acting.
Right.
Because when I saw my cousin, I saw him on Entertainment Tonight. That's when I first became aware that, he had done all this stuff.
Did you know him growing up and stuff?
Yeah, it's my cousin. It's like...
Yeah. Some people, though, they don't know their cousins
No,
that well.
he's my big cousin. I do remember the first time I heard him sing. I was 7 years old, and they lived in Florida. We from Jersey, and I went down to see my cousins, and he sang.
Right.
And even at 7 years old,
He had it.
I remember being much moved. His father made him sing, and he was crying. It's his whole story, but so he blows up, and it's the late 80s. And I had extensions in my hair because he had the Terrence and Darby thing going on.
Hilarious.
And I was at school saying, Terrence and Darby's my cousin. Terrence and Darby's my cousin. Just totally wrapped up in his identity.
Right.
And so I had people calling me Shawn Michael.
Right.
So
because he was Terrence Trent.
I was trying to find myself.
Right.
And so when I got to school, then, it's like, well, what do we call you? I said,
Right.
I'm Shawn Michael. So to this day, it's so funny. I'll see people from NYU and they'll go, Shawn Michael. And
Well, and do people out here, you've lived out here for how long? In LA? We're in LA.
I've been out here since 94. People out here call me Shawn.
They call you Shawn.
Or
because I call you Shawn Michael Howard.
Well, see, okay, so that's the thing. So then I
don't know why, but it's because that's what I see on Facebook that you're Shawn Michael.
That's what people call me in the business.
And you're also, because you're an actor, and actors tend to go, it's so weird, it's Philip Seymour Hoffman, and then people are like, hey, it was, whatever. It was,
he was at NYU when I was
Phil
there too.
down, and you're like, Phil, and they're like, to me, he's Philip
Seymour
Hoffman.
Yeah, for sure. So I was Shawn Michael for my freshman year.
Right.
And then I went back to Shawn because at that point I was more grounded in reality and myself. But then when I started working, for SAG, you got to pick a name. You got to pick a thing.
Right.
And my agents were like, we love your name. Don't change your name. Because I was like, should I pick a name? And they were like, don't change. Shawn Michael Howard just rolls off your tongue.
Totally.
It's great. So then Shawn Michael Howard. And so people now call me Shawn Michael Howard.
How'd you get your first agent?
A guy named Dwayne Martin was in a movie called Above the Rim.
Yeah.
He was a basketball player, and we both were at NYU.
Right.
And Dwayne, he knew, he was cool with Will Smith and, all these people, and he was doing a lot of stuff, way before I was.
Right.
But I would see Dwayne at the basketball court because I played basketball. and I didn't know he was an actor yet.
Right.
And but I was there studying theater, and then I went to a video store in Gramercy Park, and he was behind the counter, and there was a picture of him, like a headshot, and I was like, "Yo, man, I didn't know you were like an actor or whatever." He's like, "Yeah, man, and I'm doing this, and that," and he's like, "You're an actor, right, at school?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He was like, "Yeah, I'm sure my agent would like you." And that dude hooked me up with I forget, I think it was called FBI. That agency was called FBI
In New York City.
Yeah,
Right.
The drummer from the Police, his brother ran that agency. That's what I remember.
Stuart Copeland.
Ian Copeland. It was his agency.
It's so funny.
And I went there. I did a monologue from that Ione Sky movie with John Cusack. Say Anything.
Oh yeah, people.
I did a monologue from, that
movie.
scene, and I got an agent because Dwayne Martin totally hooked me up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you were still in college at that point?
Yeah.
And did you start to work?
Yeah, I started working. Well, like I started doing commercials first.
Right. Yeah,
I started doing commercials enough so that I was able to quit my busboy job.
Right. Where were you bussing?
At this restaurant in Soho. I think it was called Canal Plus, or I forget the name of it. I forget the name of it.
I don't know.
I remember.
I always think I'm going to know every restaurant, but I hardly spent time in New
I got
York.
fired from just about every restaurant job I had in New York. I worked at the Paramount Hotel.
Right. Oh, that's a cool spot.
Yeah. But I was able, I was doing commercials, so I was able to quit my job.
Yeah.
And I remember as a busboy, I was making $14 a day at that time. I was also a bike messenger in New York.
That must have been tough.
Yeah. So I started out doing commercials, and then that led to episodic television, like episode of Law and Order.
Right.
I did this. My first job was with Spike Lee.
Yeah.
My first big job, commercial job. He directed the first call 1-800-AT&T commercials. Remember those?
I don't.
Okay. It was AT&T commercials.
Right.
And Spike Lee directed it, and I was in it. And I look like Spike Lee. We kind of resemble each other.
Sure, I see that.
And so that was the first time I did something, and I get on the train and people be like, "Yo, you Spike Lee brother, right?"
That's hilarious.
That was the beginning for me.
So then, sorry, we just did a giant segue into moviedom. So it's irresistible. But
I will say when I was at school, Philip Seymour Hoffman was there.
He was
a couple years older than ahead of me. Sarah Silverman was a classmate. All those guys from Reno 911, like Ben Garant and Tom Lennon, Kerry Kinney, all those people. There was like Jesse Martin.
I don't know who that
Jesse
is.
Martin was on Law and Order. And
right.
There's like all these, Nicole Parker. There's all these people like that eventually blew up were there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Time.
That's wild. It's amazing how that is. And so then when, drinking and using, when does that come into your story?
So I grew up playing ball, so the idea of drinking and using, I was an athlete, so I might have had a wine cooler at some point. And also my parents were lawyers, and my father was a police. First he was a cop, and then he was a detective, then he was a sergeant, and by the time he died, he was a lieutenant. Uh-huh. But my father, July 3rd, 1989, was killed.
Oh shit! I'm sorry.
And that was the first week that I, experimented.
How old were you at that point?
20, yeah.
Right.
And my father, so my mom killed my dad, and so I got the news that my dad was dead, and then I went back to the phone, and they said, "Your mother's in jail. She did it."
Whoa.
And so she went on trial for murder, and that lasted 1.5 years, this murder trial. And that week, if you can imagine that sort of unfathomable.
No, I'm trying to engage my imagination in this, and it's beyond my. I think it's beyond my capacity.
Yeah,
that's just so fucking intense.
Yeah, that kind of life occurrence. Somebody showed up at my apartment in Gramercy Park, knocked on my door. Somebody from I knew from New Jersey, a young lady, and she had a joint, mm-hmm. And I don't know if there was alcohol involved or not, but she showed me a good time,
right?
And it was the first time that I did anything,
right?
And I remember she shaved my Jersey mustache. Like in New Jersey, when you grow up, everybody grows a mustache and they usually keep it at that time.
Yeah.
And I remember she was like, "You need to get rid of this."
Are you a freshman in college?
I had just finished my freshman year, so I had just come. It was July.
An intense time.
Yeah. So That was the first time.
And what happened in the trial?
My mother she had a great lawyer, a guy named Raymond Brown. She was eventually acquitted.
Right.
The charges were a murder in the first degree, which means you thought about killing somebody and then you killed them.
Right.
And they couldn't prove that.
Right.
She was found guilty of manslaughter.
Right.
Which means you caused someone's death, whether you meant to do it or not. And she was found guilty of death by auto, which means you caused a person's death and an automobile was involved. And so she got probation. She got like 5 years probation. And yeah.
And were you going to the trial like when this was all going on? Like were you?
Man, I stayed away as much as I could. I had to go to court. I think it was twice. I had to go to court in a year and a half. I had to. Like I guess they call that subpoenaed or something.
Right.
I had to go to court to give a testimony, and then I went for the verdict.
Right.
And this was during the time of the Joey Buttafuoco, Amy Fisher story. Like that thing was fully in the news.
Totally.
And I remember like seeing my family's house on the news, and like I think it was like my brother shutting the door. Like it was like New Jersey attorney murders her husband. Like it was like that kind of thing.
What was this? What had happened?
My parents had a tumultuous relationship growing up. I mean, they were academics and definitely, they were attorneys, so we were upper middle class.
Right.
But kind of a Cosby Show, like veneer.
Yeah. How many brothers and sisters?
Two older brothers.
Right.
And then there's like a brother that I found out about later. But in my household, there's two older brothers. I'm the youngest, and there was domestic violence.
Yeah.
My parents were. There was all kinds of stuff going on.
Gets volatile.
Volatile.
Yeah.
And my, whenever the cops would come to my house, which they did.
Sure.
It was, these people worked with my father.
Right.
So that stuff kind of went unchecked.
Yeah. Sure.
And I remember once I was eating a bowl of Cocoa Puffs watching Fat Albert when I was a kid. And, my parents the fighting would just start wherever in the house. And there'd be this cacophony of sound and dishes and whatever and expletives and the mention of infidelities and this sort of thing. And I got used to that. So I'm in there, they're doing their thing, fighting, and I'm just eating my
so my
cereal.
Kids feel about my wife and I, and we start fighting, they're just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Those guys are crazy.
Yeah. And then, the door separating the kitchen from the living room where I was kind of burst open. My father comes through, and he falls down on the floor in front of me and, writhing around in pain, and his brown skin had turned pink because, she had taken a pot of hot scalding water and thrown it on his back.
Jeez.
And so like that was my childhood. It was
what
like,
did you do? Did you like,
was
there anything you could do? You're just like, there's nothing I can do.
I honestly black out at that point,
sure.
But I remember the Cocoa Puffs and I remember Fat Albert.
Right. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure police came after that.
Right.
But that was my child. It was like music lessons on Saturday.
Right.
Our speech was corrected. We're articulate people. Went to school, and occasionally these two professional people were fighting. Like
just blew up. Yeah.
And I didn't feel safe.
Yeah. No. Sure.
And I got first time I was mugged. I was 8 years old, right in front of my house. My parents could have moved away from our little neighborhood, but they stayed for whatever reason. Sure. And I would bring my parents to like real estate section. I was like, get us out of here.
Right. That's wild.
Yeah.
So, so you have this joint and this much needed, I would say, relief from what you're going through, and like it sticks.
Yeah, it was like taking a permanent vacation, like that feeling of the first time of like getting high.
Sure.
And then sex was involved.
Yeah.
Not to mention when I was a kid, there was a molestation from like 5 to 11.
Right.
And I, whenever I can get a chance to share about that on like a kind of from the podium.
Sure.
People will come up to me afterwards and thank me for that.
Yeah, because it's like, I swear, it's like the one, like, it's like, I feel like it's just like the it's like an area where like the shame I think people feel is still so acute that like, you know, regardless of how much therapy you've been through, that like, it's hard to talk about. And, I do find that like, even in stand-up comedy, just like sharing my comfort with my own misbehavior and my own, you know, mistakes or whatever, and my own shame, and making light of my own shame. Not to say that that's what you're doing, but like when I'm, I feel like that helps people like to talk about it, to be okay with like, this was my life, you know, this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm fine. Don't feel sorry for me.
Yeah. Or I'm not fine, or I'm angry, or I'm in fear.
Right.
Like,
right.
There's definitely recovery is, the opposite of addiction. I heard this recently. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah. Right.
And that's what happens when people recover together in groups.
Totally.
Is we get to normalize our traumatic experiences.
Right.
Acceptance of this stuff is not approval.
Right.
But to be able to talk about it, I think diminishes the gravity of the effect the trauma has on us.
Sure.
So if somebody can hear me say that, you know, hey, yeah, I was sexualized or I was molested. And in my case, it was, you know, it was a babysitter, it was a female, but still I was 5 years old when it began. And I would see pictures of myself and other kids, like class pictures.
Right.
And like I would spot myself and like think dirty.
Oh man.
Bad.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So that first hit July of 1989, in the wake of all this stuff that happened, in the domestic violence, in the, you know, living in a war-torn city, really,
right.
Newark, New Jersey,
yeah.
was like growing up in Beirut, bombed out city blocks,
right,
getting chased home by gangs,
yeah.
you know, getting mugged at 8 years old in front of your house, like just not feeling safe. Mm-hmm. And then growing up in the disease of alcoholism,
right?
Like I was profoundly affected by the disease of alcoholism.
Was there alcoholism in your family?
No. Right. In the family dynamic, yes. My grandmother died of alcoholism sipping brandy to the end in upstate
right.
New York. There were no bottles in
right.
my house. There wasn't an identifiable drinker in my house.
Right.
But my mother was an adult child of an alcoholic.
Right. Right.
So alcoholism was in my house.
All of that.
Yeah.
Those patterns.
Yeah. That's what I've learned about alcoholism. It's not about the drinker.
Right.
You know, it's easy to identify your spouse or a sibling or, you know, someone in family is like the drinker.
Right.
And the drinker is not the problem.
Right.
You know, it's alcoholism. I heard that alcoholism is not a spectator sport. Sooner or later, we all get to join in.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely in my house.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So then what? So what happens? What happens then?
So then, you know, I go back to school. No one. That stuff's on the news, but no one's connecting me to it.
Right.
So I remember being out at dinner one night. And someone was like, "Did you hear about that lawyer that killed her husband?" And
right.
I'm sitting at the table. Like,
yeah.
And it was just a trip. That whole time was just a trip. And it wasn't like I became a drug addict, you know.
Sure.
But it definitely it was good for me at that time because it opened me up.
Yeah.
You know, and I started experimenting.
Right.
Mescaline, and, you know, whatever recreational drug was around at the time, I was doing it.
Right.
And I did wind up getting into a band. Like
nice.
I got through school not doing plays and whatnot.
Right.
But I remember asking my cousin Terrence, I was like, "Man, what can I do? I want to start what do I do? Like, I want to do what you're doing." And he was just like, "Find people you went to high school with, play music, and play with them."
Right.
So I called these cats I went to high school with. I was like, "Hey, my cousin's Terrence, Trent, Darby. He said we should start a band." And they were like, "That ain't your cousin." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is. It is." And so I got into a band. It was called Invisible Culture. I played CBGBs. And,
right. Nice.
You know, we opened up for Blues Traveler, Spin Doctors,
no way,
311 at Wetlands. Like,
that's a Wetlands.
I had a whole
I forgot all about
you
Wetlands.
know, rock and roll and drugs experience. And we used to play with this comedy troupe from NYU, who later became the State. You know, and those guys, Tom Lennon. We used to play shows together.
That's so cool. Mm-hmm. That must have been amazing.
It was the best time.
So
drugs and alcohol at that time, you know, it was really liberating.
Yeah.
And
And you're like doing something. I mean, it's not like
yeah.
it's not like you're just sitting around your apartment like getting fucked up. It's like you're in a band. It's like you're part of something.
Yeah.
And so then, how do you come out to LA? Are you?
Eventually I did a movie with Tupac Shakur called Above the Rim.
Right.
And I was dating a woman at NYU. I was a really bad boyfriend, and she had enough of my shit and broke up with me.
Right.
And she moved to San Francisco, Lisa Kovacevic. And I followed her.
Right.
I was like, oh my gosh, will you marry me? You know?
Right.
And then, so we got engaged, and I would see her between New York and San Francisco. And that became too much.
Right.
And I always wanted to be an actor in New York, like do theater in New York and make independent movies.
Right.
Or like Abel Ferrara. Like that was going to be my existence.
Right.
But I thought, okay, I can go to LA and work and be closer to her.
Right.
Eventually we got married, had a kid, and that whole thing. But so I got out to LA because I was like, okay, I need to get closer to Lisa. But the determining factor was I was coming from an audition in the dead of winter. And at that time in 1994, right after this was the year of the earthquake.
Yeah.
It was like the worst winter in 100 years in New York.
In New York.
Yeah, the
right.
blizzards.
Yeah, that's right. More people died in the blizzards in New York than died in the earthquake.
Really? That year?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
That same week, it was like 56 people. I can't remember how many people died in LA from the earthquake.
That's funny. How you remember that?
Because everyone kept being like, I had just moved out here like 3 months before the earthquake, and people kept being like, how can you live in a place that has earthquakes? And I was like, I just remember that statistic, and I would sort of hurl it around like, you're living in a more dangerous place than I am,
Yeah. So I'm leaving an audition, and I'm walking down the street, and it's cold, and I'm all hunched over, and I'm walking down Fifth Avenue. I'll never forget, I was near the Flatiron Building. And I was thinking, I can't keep doing this shit. And like, black people don't get cabs. And like, I'm mad. And like, I was the guy who would chase down the cab. In winter, man. And all of a sudden I heard this sound. And I look over, and there's a dude skiing down Fifth Avenue.
You're like, enough.
Skiing. And I said, I'm out of here. And I left.
Yeah, fuck that.
I left.
That's hilarious.
And my cousins were out here, Terrence and his brother Darren Darby, who was his road manager.
Right.
And I was like, yo, cuz, can I sleep on your couch?
Right.
Come on. So I came out here, slept on his couch on Franklin and La Brea.
Oh, really? Right here? How about that?
Yeah. And, I got a gig almost a month in.
Right.
Got some kind of job, started making some money.
Right.
And then I got a movie, and I got another movie, and it just started rolling.
Right.
And then I got this show, The Single Guy, and that really sort of changed, like, everything for me at that time.
Who was that? What was that?
That was this NBC show.
NBC,
yeah, it was my first series regular job. Jonathan Silverman was the star of it.
Right.
Ernest Borgnine, who I loved, grew up watching him.
Awesome.
And a guy named Joey Slotnick, who was enormously talented actor. Ming-Na Wen, she's on one of these Marvel shows.
Right.
And Olivia Dabo, who's a good friend of mine today.
Sure.
So I did that, and then everything changed.
Right.
That's when, after that aired, the next day, like, I went outside and life was different. Like,
oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, it was cool.
And so then how does your sort of addiction story then play out?
Interestingly, like once that started to happen, because my son was born, like in the midst before all of that really got started, my son was born. And so I remembered like really cleaning up and not doing any kind of drugs or whatever. But, eventually that like red carpet lifestyle, I was like, well, I'll have a drink at this event.
Sure.
And tequila would knock me out.
Right.
My great grandmother is a full-blooded Cherokee Indian.
Right.
So I have a sort of an intolerance to alcohol.
Right.
Like,
oh wow. Sure.
A drink or two and I'm out.
You're a mess.
So there was a few times I found myself like getting carried out of a place or two.
Right.
And I think I was at ICM at the time. I would go to the ICM holiday parties.
Holiday parties are dangerous.
Yeah. And I remember very clearly being in the bathroom stall, and I couldn't get up. And like, Brian Donovan, who I just saw at an audition recently, he was like, "Are you okay, man?" This actor friend of mine. And I remember them carrying me out of a bathroom stall. So that's when I knew I had a problem.
When I was at Phoenix Pictures, we would have this Golden Globes party every year, and it would be at some ludicrously fancy venue. You know, it'd be like at Ron Burkle's house up in Beverly Hills, which is like 23 acres on a hilltop with, you know, just like Renoirs and, you know, and every star in Hollywood would come to this thing. We would get so fucked up for it. And then, you know, for the next 2 days, be like, what did I do? What did I just tell me the truth. What did I do? You know?
Yeah.
It's kind of fun, but
Yeah.
scary too.
Yeah.
And so then
it got progressively worse. Didn't know I had a problem at the time.
right.
And started doing more and more stuff. And this is all in the wake of 9/11. So
Right.
9/11 comes. I had this this made-for-TV movie I did with this guy Vincent Spano.
Oh, yeah.
And in this movie, it's called The Rats.
Uh-huh.
And we're the heroes of the movie. And we use these killer rats taking over New York City. And like what we did to kill the rats was we nuked New York City.
Oh man.
And like so leading up, and this is before 9/11, right? So the previews for the movie are like showing and whatnot all that summer, and I'm like, oh, things are gonna change for me. I'm playing the hero in this movie, and we think,
right.
and like, but we blew up New York City.
Right.
And then 9/11 happened.
Right.
And that movie never
We're
showed.
not fucking airing this thing. Yeah.
So after 9/11, it was weird. It's just kind of weird that next year in the world, but certainly in the business.
Yeah.
And I found myself sitting around with money and nothing to do.
Right.
And like more experimenting.
Right.
And then that just led to showing up to places, you know, where
Fucked
I
up.
needed to be professional.
Right.
Not well.
Right.
I'll never forget I auditioned for I think it was a screen test even. And Wanda Sykes.
Yeah.
I remember I had like 3 auditions with her.
Right.
And they went well.
Yeah.
And I was just fine, but I showed up to the thing not well.
To the screen test. So you've gotten to
I've
the
done
point where
all
they're
of
like,
the auditions.
yeah, it's just like
yeah.
it's you and one other guy.
Me and one
or
other
something.
guy. And I'll never forget like walking in and her kind of looking at me like, what's wrong with you?
Right. Man, I don't think you want Wanda Sykes looking at you, you know, with like that look, you know, like,
Yeah.
boy,
Yeah.
what have you done? Like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
all right, Mom, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But eventually, you know, people started to notice, and people would come to me and say, "Hey, man, you need help," and
Oh,
that
right.
sort of thing. And a really good friend of mine picked me up one day, dropped me off to a place to get help.
Right. And like, what did were you ready for it at that point?
No.
No.
I knew I was ready to trust this particular friend of mine,
Right.
but I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
And what happens?
I went to quite a few of those things.
Right.
I was at first there was the you know, the fancy ones up in Malibu.
Right.
And I would leave after a week or two, go get into trouble. And I had my drug counselor was a guy named Bob Timmons, who was he was big time. You know, he was like the guy. My lawyer got him. For
Right,
me, but
right.
He was
He's
the
like,
guy
"Who
who
you
like
get?"
he dealt with like rock stars, and he
Right.
very very famous guy, popular guy, and well known. Really helped a lot of people, and like he helped Robert Downey Jr.
I was just gonna say that's the guy you want, Robert Downey.
I mean, this is Robert Downey Jr.'s guy too. But
I remember when I got sober, a friend of mine was like, "You need to go see Robert Downey Jr.'s massage therapist."
That's funny.
I did it, of course. I'll do anything, but
Yeah.
Anyway. So you see this guy, Bob Timmons.
Bob Timmons, yeah, he. I just remember him being assigned to me and
Right.
trying to explain shit to me, and it didn't work. And I would just go from rehab to rehab until Timmons said, "You need to go to a place that's not fancy, where they don't have
Right.
chefs."
Right.
And I did that.
Get humble.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was terrible. It was worse. If you're
Right.
listening and you can go to rehab, go to the fancy rehab. I'm kidding.
No, I mean, I think that's like, I don't know. It's interesting. And how long were you there?
I
At that
really
place?
wouldn't last more than 14, 15 days anywhere.
Anywhere.
Until I, by the grace of God, I wound up in a place called Pasadena Recovery Center. And I went and something clicked. And I stayed for like 30
Recovery
days.
Center.
It's not there anymore, but
Oh, okay.
it eventually became Celebrity Rehab.
Uh-huh.
Like it's
Right.
and it's next to Impact up in Pasadena.
Right.
But I got sober there.
Yeah.
And life changed, and I found a program that I will not mention because it's against traditions.
Right.
And I just got so into that lifestyle.
When was this? What year
sober
are we
lifestyle.
now?
This is 2004. November 7th, 2004. Right. And I found places to go regularly, and I would go like 3 and 5 times a day.
Years ago.
That was about 14 years ago.
Right. Wow.
I would go.
You go 5 times a day?
5 times a day. I was getting disability, so I could.
Right.
Because by that time, all the money had run out.
Right.
I had no more money.
I suppose you spend. I suppose going to those fancy rehabs is expensive too. Or does your insurance cover
you know
that?
what? I had good friends.
Right.
I had some powerful friends who paid for at least one of them.
Right.
And then I had good health insurance.
Yeah.
Screen Actors Guild.
Right. Yeah, that's good insurance.
Take care of their people.
Yeah, they do. Because they got a lot of crazies in there, so they know.
So that's what I did. I just got into that lifestyle. And
have you stayed in it ever since, or have you?
I've had some slips here and there, but yeah, I mean, it is. I've tried to not go to a program because I've seen other people get well and then leave it. Yeah, and I thought I want to do that. I don't want to be doing this.
Right, I want to be well
and not have to do this thing.
Right,
but I know now that I'm supposed to be exactly where I am.
Right.
And that this particular...
like it's not your punishment.
Not just that it's not my punishment, but it's definitely, for whatever reason, I believe my higher power wants me there.
It's your grace. I find...
higher power. Why did I say that? God. God wants me there.
God wants you there. Right. I find that like... it is a little bit like, I've talked about this before, but it feels a little bit like going to the gym. Like you're kind of like, oh, dude, I don't want to fucking do that. And then you go and you're like, why would I ever not want to do that? That makes me feel good. I get like sustenance from this. It like helps me understand my life better. It helps me connect with people. And you say that thing that you said that the opposite of addiction is connection. And I think that's like, it's funny because like, I have,
Pam Georgette told me that, by the way. Right. I have to give her credit to that.
That's cool. Yeah. We live in a society, at least this one particular in Los Angeles, that's like irreligious, right? I would say there's pockets of people who have their religious institution that they go to, but like most people don't. And it's like, I feel that in recovery, I've gotten this sense of community that in the old days you might get from your church, and like like I get it there, and like I realize that like one of the great benefits of organized religion, aside from whatever the knowledge that they're sharing with their followers of
access to the Creator.
Is right,
yeah,
and the
access to God.
Afterlife is this sense of community, this sense of belonging and support. But
a place where you can be who you are and still be loved.
It's funny, when I first met you, which was maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, about that.
You were in this position where you were pursuing a PhD.
Oh, that's right.
And you said that you were going to step away from it to get back to chasing your acting career.
I'm sure I didn't say chasing, because that's not my verbiage
right,
for that
I'm
sort
sure.
of thing. But yeah.
You were going to I guess I would say I used chasing because it seemed like the dream. Like that's the thing. Like that's where what I took away from you saying that was like, in that artistic endeavor is where you get like satisfaction. Like it feels like where you belong in some ways, and that there was something in this pursuit of the PhD that seemed, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that as I recall, it felt like it was an inauthentic pursuit. It was not, you weren't being true to yourself.
It was ego driven.
Really? Yeah.
Because God, in 2008, the economic crisis hit.
Right.
Concurrently with the Screen Actors Guild strike.
And the digitization.
And the Writers Guild strike.
And also this whole thing of Hollywood getting digitized, which really fucked up a lot of the economics of Hollywood.
So it was the worst time in Hollywood since Hollywood began.
Yeah.
And that's when you saw like movie stars started doing television. Like that whole trend started on there. And if you weren't Brad Pitt or somebody, with a whole lot of dough, and you were like a guy like me who had a filmography but no money, then you had to do something.
Right.
And so I went back to school. I got a master's degree in marriage and family therapy.
Right.
I was doing that whole thing. And then this PhD thing, it was actually a side D for me,
Right?
Because I can't stand research, but I wanted to like have a doctorate in psychology and use it for whatever. And so I did this. I got accepted to a 3-year postmaster's doctorate program, and I did the first year. And I was also still auditioning and doing gigs here and there, which is virtually, it seemed impossible. So I was having anxiety attacks.
Sure.
About I got to either put my acting career on hold and just get this doctorate and just don't do any kind of acting endeavor for at least 2 more years and focus on this thing, or take this. I got a voiceover job at the time, like a campaign, right? And I was like, I got to do one or the other, man. And I'm not going to turn down this money because I still need money to go to school. And in the midst of my dissertation, I realized I'm like sitting at this I was at Stories, Books, and Cafes studying this thing and working on this thing. And I realized I'm looking at all these charts and I was like, I don't give a fuck about this at all. At all. And the fire for acting had definitely dwindled. So I was just like, I'm going to auditions. It's like a money thing. And I never did it like that. But I realized I wanted a doctorate because I wanted to be called doctor. I'll
call you doctor anytime. You just call me from now on. You're Dr. Shawn Michael Howard in my book.
And so, I withdrew. I withdrew from the and then.
Well, I think at that point I had maybe just finished producing the first movie that I had a full producer credit on, and maybe I was just starting stand up, and I was just like, I just fucking loved what you were saying, that like, because I mean, doing anything creative, it's like this act of faith, and you need to believe that it's going to work out for you. And sometimes you have to throw caution to the wind in the name of pursuing your dreams. And like, that's the way I read what you were doing. You're like, look, I have this fallback thing that I'm creating for myself, but I can't do both things. And like, I don't love this fallback. So fuck it. I'm going to put my faith in God. I'm going to put myself in the hands of God, and I'm going to trust that it's going to work out. And
it wasn't.
It was like, that's what I don't know. That's what I needed to hear at that point. And I was like, yeah, fuck, good for that fucking dude.
I never thought of it as a fallback thing.
Well,
maybe I did, but I also saw it as like in recovery, saying yes, and that God is showing me different ways of being. So it was also just kind of a surrender. I'm like, oh, here's an opportunity. But there's a guy named Pete who's a big time real estate agent. When I moved from New York, Pete was a rock star. He was an engineer, and he was Terrence Trent Darby's engineer. And he was my first roommate here when I got here. Pete was this just nasty English drunk, and then he got sober.
Oh, I know him. I see him at the 101.
He does his thing at the 101
in the morning.
So Pete actually, this thing about the PhD or film and television, I ran into Pete, and who's been in recovery a long time, and I remember when Pete told me, he was like, "Oh, I think I'm going to go into real estate." I remember that. And I remember feeling bad for him. I was like,
because wasn't he like a worldwide rock star DJ?
He engineered Terrence Trent Darby's record.
Oh, fuck.
That's what he did. Like that was his thing.
Wow, it all comes
and he's a musician
circle.
and a DJ and like very successful. And I remember thinking, man, what's wrong with you?
Poor guy.
Real estate. And so then he became pretty damn good at it. And so I said to him, Pete, how did you do this real estate thing, man? Because I remember when you started. And he said, Shawn, I just decided I was going to go in this direction and not look back. And I wasn't doing that.
That's interesting.
I was straddling both worlds. I was doing this clinical thing and also the movies and whatnot.
That's interesting.
And so I thought, I need to focus on one. I'm going to focus on one thing.
Are you still doing therapy?
Oddly enough. I'm not giving it right now. But I decided, because I stopped in like 2010. I did it for like about a year where I actually was giving people therapy. But you got to get like a certain amount of hours. And when I stopped, and I just went back into film and television, I lost my hours.
Oh, so you have to do it within a certain
amount of time. So just as an exercise in completion. And all my friends now, or my classmates from that time, they're all licensed people. And
where'd you get your thing?
Antioch University. Great program. Highly recommend it. I do a little plug for them. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had.
Cool.
Self-discovery. And then my classmates from the doctorate program, they're all doctors now.
Right.
You know? But no, and then my friends go, yeah, but you've produced 4 movies and you've done this and that. I got to keep telling myself, yeah.
Right,
I
yeah.
haven't just been
It
doing
always
nothing.
looks greener on the other side.
Right. So I am I am going to get licensed. That's what I'm doing. I don't know what's going to.
Right, but you're going to finish that fucking thing.
Finish it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just
that's
finish
good.
an
That's
endeavor.
smart. So then, so what's it like now?
So on my journey now, I am praying to really have an experience with a power greater than myself, like where I have it's said to have a new employer, right? And one of my spiritual teachers, a guy named Timothy Keller. Like, I don't know him personally, but
Right.
you know, I follow him. I listen to his podcasts and whatnot. And he's this pastor out in New York.
Right.
And someone sent me a book called Sermon on the Mount, and I read it.
What's that about?
It's basically about.
Did he write that?
No, he didn't write
Right.
that. That's Emmett Fox.
Right.
And it's basically a book that opened me up to the idea of considering who God is, you know, without believing. It basically says, look, this guy is the most influential person on the planet. So whether you believe or not, if you're a thinking man, which I like to think that I am, just find out about this guy. That was the first time I was like, you know what? That's true. This is before I had any kind of belief.
When you say this guy, you mean God?
I mean Jesus.
Jesus, right.
That book, Emmett Fox is like, look, Jesus is the most influential human being who's ever walked the planet. You can't even argue it.
Sure.
You can't argue it. So if you don't believe in him, you can just find out about him in an academic sense. And I was like,
Totally.
damn, that's so true.
Yeah.
So I decided to like start reading the Bible and just finding about just as an exercise in academics.
Sure.
And then I got turned on to this book called Counterfeit Gods by this guy, Timothy Keller.
Right.
So I started like going to church just as a non-believer.
Right. Where are you going to church?
I was going at that time at a place called Reality LA. It's in high school, at Helen Bernstein High School on Sundays in Hollywood.
Is there some like charismatic guy who
Not at
leads
all.
that?
There
No,
was like
it's
this
just a
hipster
church.
dude
Right.
named Tim Chaddick. He was younger than me. This guy was like early 30s, white, skinny, with sleeve tats.
Right.
Preaching
That's
in a high
cool.
school auditorium. So I was like, this is cool. I can get with this. And, you know, I just had a religious experience. Like
What was it?
He was talking about, he said, he's talking about spiritual gifts. And he was like, I was like maybe sitting there for about 45 seconds. And it felt like he was talking to me. He was like, has people told you your whole life that you were special? That was my experience.
Yeah.
But you didn't believe it deep down.
Right.
That was my experience. And you had these special talents or abilities, and you always used those special talents and abilities to serve yourself, which was my experience. And they took you to places, your greatest dreams, which happened to me.
Yeah.
But he said, but eventually they failed you. And it took you to places as low as you never thought that you'd go. And then I just started bawling.
Right.
And that was like the beginning of me coming to believe.
Right.
Because I was like, this guy's talking to me. He's saying my story. But there was an auditorium, like 300 people there.
Right.
So I just kept going. Eventually, like, I joined a Bible study group. And I was like, I don't want to hear nothing about Jesus. Because I had this resentment, you know. But I kept asking questions. And this guy, Tim Chaddick, he's in England now. But he was like, here, read this book. It was by this guy, Timothy Keller. And it was called Counterfeit Gods.
Tim Chaddick's the pastor.
Tim Chaddick's the pastor.
Sorry,
and he turned me on to this other pastor
sure.
book called Counterfeit Gods. So I'm reading this book, and the book is all about identifying idols in one's life.
Right.
And he had this great analogy. It's about
like false idols.
False idols.
Yeah.
Right. He had this great analogy of the Lord of the Rings. Now, he said in the Lord of the Rings, everybody from the good people to the little people, from the evil people to the giants, to the good people, to the evil people, to the good people, the little people to the giants, they were all after this one object called the precious.
Yeah.
Right? And in that book, he's like identifying what God is finding out where we go for fulfillment. The precious was that object that everybody in that story thought, if I get it, I'm going to be okay. And if I lose it, I'm not going to be okay.
Right.
But everybody in that story who got the precious, once they got it, it turned them inside out. And that had been my experience because
Right.
where I went to for fulfillment,
God, that's so fucked up.
my precious, it still sometimes remains. I said, ask myself, rigorous honesty. Shawn, what do you think in your life that if you get it, you're going to be okay? And for me, it's money.
Yeah, totally.
Validation.
Totally.
Romance.
Right.
Sex, whatever you want to call that. And property and prestige.
Sure.
I honestly believe like that's truly the precious in my life most of the time.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Where I think if I'm going to get it, I'm going to be okay. And if I lose it, I'm not going to be okay.
You hear all these stories in recovery of dudes who they're like, I had everything and I still wasn't satisfied.
Right. My dressing room was never big enough.
Yeah.
My salary was never big enough.
Yeah, it was never enough.
My body's never been good enough.
I've never had that level of success, but I look at my life and my life is my life is awesome. I have so much and yet still it's never enough.
Yeah.
I'd love to be more at peace with where I am in life. I'd love to truly believe in some other precious.
Right.
Something that was more spiritually sound than my success and my money,
Right.
And sometimes I do, you see it in the world, in the, the beauty of nature or the generosity of your fellow man. But it's hard to overcome a whole system of societal values that tells you something else. Anyway,
right.
I interrupted you in this profound moment.
No, but that makes sense with what you're saying, that it's hard in our culture to have this personal experience with God.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I found a group of people. I learned in recovery how to recover, how to heal. First, get around other people who are doing it.
Yeah.
Ask them questions.
Yeah.
Find a mentor, someone who I trust to be like, take me through this process. And that's exactly what I did.
Right.
And so today I believe in God. It's the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
And you're still involved in this? Are you still involved in that church with Chadwick?
No, I left that church and then I got with a church in downtown LA called Pacific Crossroads.
Uh-huh.
There's great churches all over the area. And now I'm at a new church, a smaller church in Silver Lake called Missio Dei LA.
Uh-huh.
And but the main thing is for God to go from being a concept to a reality. And when you and I talked about addiction, the opposite of addiction is connection.
Right.
And I learned that addiction is taking a good thing and making it an ultimate thing.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
Right. And then that's what the idol is. That's what the precious is, because we're meant to have jobs. We're meant to have, money, and we're meant to eat, drink, and be merry.
Right.
But when we take the drink, alcohol, right, and we go to that for fulfillment, eventually we make that the ultimate thing.
Yeah.
So unless I have something already in place in my life, that God-shaped hole, eventually it's going to be money, property, prestige. It's going to be sex. It's going to be drugs. It's going to be something that's a good thing that's going to overtake me in my life.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I feel it. I feel it in things, like when I have some success at work or whatever in whatever I'm working on, and then I get that drunken feeling, and I'm like, oh, this is weird. Because I want it more, and I get my ego gets I get drunk with it. It's weird.
Yeah. So today, to wrap up, of course I want, you're what are you doing now? And I'm like, well, I have projects in development. I'm doing a lot of voiceover work, and I have things that I want in my life, but daily I have to check and identify the things that are the precious in my life and literally smash them. Idols are meant to be smashed.
Right.
And living here in Hollywood, it's it's a culture of idols. It's a world of idols.
Yeah.
And if I'm able to participate in this world, because there's a lot of good things about Hollywood.
Sure.
Right?
Totally.
But I get in trouble if they become an ultimate thing.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at now. Just trying to be in a place where God is the center of my life, and I have a new employer.
Right.
I have a new sort of mission. There's a difference between me going out on a date, or rather being sent on a date.
Right.
There's a difference to me going to a podcast interview and being sent.
Right.
You know, and in the craft of acting, it's all about intention.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, what do I intend? How do I want to affect this other person?
Right.
Rather than going to get something and thinking about myself and putting the focus on me. You know, that if I'm going to serve, that's like a whole new outlook on life for me.
Right.
Like, how can I serve this moment, this relationship, this person?
I find there's so much relief in that. It takes me out of trying to win all the time. And you know, not necessarily beat other people, but just like to somehow turn every experience into a triumph, which is what I'm inclined to do. But like, when I'm able to remember, it's such a great tool to like just go and be of service. I can be great. I can be so helpful and do good work, you know, as opposed to like getting all bent out of joint because like I'm not being treated the way I expect to be treated.
Right.
You know, and it's funny when I talk to like younger people who are trying to get into Hollywood, I'm always like, you got to enjoy the process, man, because like that fantasy of what you see on TV of like when you win the award, or like when the cameras are all like flash bulbing in your face because you're famous, like that's the worst part of it. You know, the best part of it is like making art, you know, if you're lucky, or doing something creative with people who care and that you get excited to be around them.
I heard Flavor Flav say, don't let a win get to your head or a loss to your heart.
That's good.
Because what I would say to young people in Hollywood, anybody coming here, is like, if you come in here and you don't have something in your life, or if I don't have something in my life that's greater than myself, history proves that I will wind up lost in this place.
Totally.
You know, like, one of my favorite bits of scripture is this, and then I'll close, is it's, a live dog is better off than a dead lion. Anyone among the living has hope.
Right.
And Hollywood is littered with a lot of dead lions.
So many dead lions,
right?
Man.
I mean, the greatest, Prince, Michael Jackson, like we talked about Philip Seymour Hoffman earlier, like a lot of people who are the greatest.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But they got lost and caught up because they made a good thing an ultimate thing. And I don't want that to happen to me.
That's cool. Shawn Michael Howard, thank you. Thank you for coming in. I really enjoyed sitting down with you. This is cool.
Thank you.
All right, take it easy. Drunkalogs cover art is designed and created by John DeMinil, and the Drunkalogs theme song is composed and performed by Stephen Stout. I am Nick Morton.